Imagine being beaten for humming a hymn. Then, 50 years later, hearing that same hymn shake a nation, you know? The story of faith and freedom in Black communities isn't just a history lesson. It's a living, breathing testament to resilience. It begins in the most unlikely of places, far from stained glass windows and grand pulpits. Picture this: the Carolina brush arbor meetings of the 1750s. Enslaved Africans, stripped of so much, found a way to stitch together the profound narratives of the Bible with the rhythmic pulse of ancestral drums. There were no buildings, no printed Bibles, just the raw, powerful call-and response echoing under a canopy of stars. These weren't just secret gatherings. They were hush harbors, sacred spaces where a new, subversive theology was birthed. Here, under the cloak of night, a radical idea took root: that Pharaoh could fall, that Egypt had to let God's people go. This wasn't just about ancient Hebrews. It was about them. This blend of African spirituality and Christian teachings created a distinctive form of practice, transforming European Christianity into something entirely new, deeply personal, and powerfully liberatory. They understood that their faith wasn't just about the afterlife, it was about finding spiritual liberation even while enslaved. The First Great Awakening in the mid-18th century played a pivotal role in this transformation. Evangelical preachers, particularly Methodists and Baptists, started reaching out to enslaved communities with messages of spiritual equality. Can you imagine how profound that must have sounded in a society built on brutal hierarchy? This message resonated deeply, offering hope and a powerful framework for resistance. Biblical stories, especially the Exodus narrative, became a metaphor for their own yearning for freedom, a divine promise that deliverance was possible. While some slaveholders tried to use Christianity to enforce obedience, slave preachers emphasized the Old Testament, instilling hope rather than complacency. These early gatherings laid the foundation for what would become the Black church, a dynamic institution that was far more than just a place of worship. It became a sanctuary, a site of resistance where enslaved people could gather, organize, and fiercely preserve their humanity in the face of unimaginable oppression. It was here that leaders like Richard Allen Rose, founding independent Black denominations such as the African Methodist Episcopal AIM Church in 1816. This was a bold assertion of autonomy, a declaration that Black people would define their own faith, free from white-controlled institutions. The church's role in abolitionism is undeniable, with figures like Frederick Douglass and Nat Turner drawing on their deep religious convictions to challenge the very institution of slavery. Douglass, for instance, found his voice and delivered his first public sermons really at the AIM Zion Church. After emancipation, the Black church didn't just survive, it proliferated, becoming the absolute cornerstone of community life. Think about it. In a fractured society, the church was often the only institution Black people truly owned and controlled. It wasn't just about Sunday service, it was the hub for everything. It provided education through Sunday schools and Bible studies, offering literacy skills often denied elsewhere. It established mutual aid societies, acting as a crucial safety net for financial assistance, healthcare, and burial services when mainstream institutions excluded them. The church was an incubator for leadership, a place where future activists and community organizers learned to speak, organize, and advocate. The late 19th and early 20th centuries saw the rise of something truly remarkable: the Black social gospel. This wasn't just a quiet theological movement. It was a vibrant tradition of religiously motivated social justice activism that, frankly, often gets overlooked in mainstream histories. This movement blended deep theological reflection with direct action, advocating fiercely for civil rights, economic justice, and political empowerment. Figures like William Simmons, Reverdy Ransom, Ida B. Wells, and Adam Clayton Powell Sr. were at the forefront. Believing that churches had to fuse progressive theology with social justice politics to combat white oppression. They understood that faith without works was dead, especially when their very existence was under attack. Fast forward to the mid-20th century, and you see the civil rights movement emerging, deeply rooted in these Black religious institutions. Churches weren't just symbolic, they were the logistical backbone. They provided indispensable meeting spaces, a moral authority that resonated with millions, and the organizational infrastructure needed for protests, marches, and voter registration drives. Leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., an ordained Baptist minister, didn't just lead. He framed the struggle for racial equality as a profound moral and spiritual imperative. He insisted that Christ furnished the spirit and motivation, while Gandhi furnished the method for nonviolent resistance. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, founded by King and other clergy, became a powerful engine of the movement, channeling this faith into action. Black clergy and congregations drew on powerful prophetic traditions from the Hebrew Bible, constantly calling for justice to roll down like waters. Amos 5:24. This wasn't just political activism. It was a deeply theological assertion that true faith demands action against injustice. They believed God would not only excuse but support their defiance of unjust laws. Of course, it wasn't always a monolithic front. There were internal debates, sometimes heated, about the extent of political involvement. The 1961 split in the National Baptist Convention, for instance, reflected tensions between those who prioritized spiritual mission above all else and those who felt direct civil rights activism was an inseparable part of their faith. These conversations, these debates, continue to shape the role of the Black church in public life even today. For most Black Americans, religiosity and spirituality aren't just an aspect of their lives. They're absolutely central to their personal and communal identity. Over 95% of African American adults identify as religious, spiritual, or both, and these identities, while stable for many, can also evolve. It's a nuanced understanding of faith where religious and spiritual identities often stand distinct yet interconnected. The church, in this context, functions as an irreplaceable community hub. Beyond Sunday worship, it has historically provided education, social services, economic support, and a profound sense of belonging. It's where leadership is nurtured, where people find platforms for public speaking, organizing, and civic engagement. When crises hit, from the horrors of slavery to the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, the church has consistently been a source of resilience and collective action. It's a place where needs are met, issues are addressed, and a transformative message of salvation is preached alongside calls for social change and equality. But let's be clear, not all Black Americans are Christian, and the religious landscape has always been more diverse than some might assume. The early 20th century saw the rise of fascinating alternative religious movements. Think about groups like the Nation of Islam, the Moorish Science Temple, and Ethiopian Hebrew congregations. These movements offered alternative visions of racial and religious identity, often challenging conventional American racial categories and mainstream narratives. They emphasized a religio-racial identity, blending spiritual and ethnic self-understanding in powerful ways that pushed back against the respectability politics of the mainstream Black church. The legacy of the Black church in social justice isn't just history. It absolutely endures. Modern movements like Black Lives Matter, even if more secular in their immediate leadership, undeniably draw on the moral and organizational traditions established by generations of faith-based activism. Churches today continue to advocate for voting rights, criminal justice reform, and economic equity, often acting as a conduit for information and education, mobilizing communities for civic engagement. They're stepping up to lead economic development and help close the racial wealth gap, leveraging their community ties and physical assets. However, the religious landscape is changing, and Black religious life is diversifying. While Protestant Christianity, particularly Baptist and other forms of evangelical Protestantism, remains dominant, some individuals are exploring spirituality outside traditional congregations, and others are leaving organized religion altogether. This mirrors broader national trends, but the Black church remains a vital institution for many, constantly adapting to new social realities while holding firm to its historic commitments. Research even shows that religious and spiritual identity among Black Americans is more fluid than often assumed, with significant changes occurring over relatively short periods, indicating that faith continues to evolve as a dynamic source of meaning and community. When we talk about the role of religion in Black communities, there's a long-standing debate. Has it functioned as an opiate, promoting passivity and an otherworldly focus, or as an inspiration for activism and empowerment? If you look at the historical record, it overwhelmingly supports the latter. The Black church has consistently served as a powerful catalyst for social and political engagement. It's hard to argue for an opiate when you see the church at the forefront of every major struggle for Black liberation. Yet, it's a nuanced discussion. There's always been internal diversity of opinion, with some leaders and congregations prioritizing spiritual renewal over direct political action. But even those who might have focused on a spiritual mission often provided the moral grounding and community cohesion that indirectly fueled social change. The term Black church itself, while symbolizing unity, also masks the enormous diversity within African American religious institutions and beliefs. Some commentators even suggest that an overemphasis on racial or cultural identity, sometimes at the expense of a distinct Christian spiritual identity, might contribute to a sense of crisis in some Black communities. They argue for a renewed focus on spiritual formation as the bedrock for personal and communal flourishing. These are important conversations, reflecting the ongoing evolution and introspection within these vibrant faith traditions. So, what have we learned? Religion has been and absolutely remains a cornerstone of Black American life, deeply, inextricably intertwined with struggles for freedom, justice, and community. From those hushed Brush Harbor meetings to the pulpits of the civil rights movement and the modern fight for equity, the Black church and other religious institutions have provided not just spiritual sustenance, but the moral and organizational backbone for transformative social movements. This isn't a static story. Religious and spiritual identities continue to evolve, reflecting both the enduring legacy and the adaptive resilience of Black communities in the face of ongoing challenges. Understanding this dynamic interplay isn't just academic. It's essential for grasping the full scope of Black religious history and its profound implications for the future. It's a story of faith, yes, but also of an unyielding, unbreakable spirit of freedom.